the absence of a uterus and a vagina. A vagina was the length of my fingernail. Stigma and the shame and the taboo. Working with a woman who is a victim of Jeffrey Epstein. And shame has been something that has been side by side with her.
Okay, everyone, I'm here with Alley Hensley, who I can't wait to hear your story. I think we need to hear it in our own words. Anita, Tomecki. Alley, tell us all about yourself. There's so much. I was going through all your info and there's so much to you. So I didn't want to pigeonhole you. I want you to tell me, who the hell are you in your own words?
Oh, well, I wish I knew. Okay, so the formal introduction, let's say, is that I'm a writer, I'm a ghostwriter, journalist, editor, speaker, podcast host, and let's say women's health ambassador, particularly for the story that you'll hear about today, which is MRKH. So that's kind of like who I am. But I guess in the context of this podcast, we're going to probably dive quite deep into a rare medical condition. Yeah.
Wow. And all those words, I mean, I've read them, I've heard them, but I'm going to need all your explanation because I think, like most people out there, I have no idea about it. And if you're watching right now, so I don't have to insert a video, all our millions of subscribers, tell your friends, subscribe, follow, all our watchers, hit the button, hit the button. All right, go ahead, Ali.
I love your energy, Candice. Uh,
Wow.
so, right, the most unglamorous acronym, I think, not that any medical diagnosis has to be glamorous, but it's such a tongue twister, and that's partially why it's so hard to kind of advocate for and make awareness. So, the shortened version, MRKH, which stands for Mayer-Rokitansky-Kauster-Hauser syndrome. So this is a condition that was named after the four founding physicians, men. It's also otherwise known as Müllerian agenesis or Müllerian asplasia. So it's characterized by the underdevelopment or absence of a uterus, cervix, and the upper portion of the vaginal canal. It's congenital, meaning it's present at birth. So the way I describe it is in the first sort of 6 to 8 weeks in my embryo stage in my mum's belly, when the vital organs are forming, it's almost as though there was a truck going down the genetic road and it hit a massive pothole. And that pothole is where the genes mutated. So it's kind of like my body was going, oh shit, I don't know what to do now. I don't know where to form. I'm supposed to be forming a uterus. I won't do that. I'm cervix now. I won't do that. And a vaginal canal. I won't do that. However, because we got past the ovaries on the road, let's say, estrogen was firing, which meant that my body, as a 46XX chromosome, typically formed, and we are formed from the outside in. I use the word typical because I think normal is quite a dangerous word in all contexts in life, I think. And from the outside in, you never know. You wouldn't be able to look at me as a baby or a teen or now and think that there's anything that is amiss, in quotes. And I discovered it through kind of at the age of 16 when all your friends and your peers are getting their first period, let's say. And I wasn't particularly athletic. I mean, I was dabbling with eating disorders, but nothing to the extreme of having the absence of a period, which is primary amenorrhea, medical term. And so I went to the doctors and they sort of sent me away saying, perhaps you're just a late bloomer. And in that process, and I have to be really honest because it's in my book, I did attempt to have sex on a holiday when I was going out with my girlfriend, a family holiday, but we, snuck out, of course. And it just didn't work. And I thought, well, this must be, that you read things about that, the hymen, it must be really like impossible to penetrate. And it wasn't that. It was the fact that my vagina was the length of my fingernail. But nothing really alerted me then even. And I think because when sex education classes, you don't hear about these things to prepare that it could be. You just think there's something and it's going to get, again, fixed. And I did go back to the doctor and he did perform a sort of a procedure, examination, if you like. And I think I remember sort of that look on his face of alarm, like, why can't I insert my finger into this teenager's vagina. And then, but again, that didn't startle me. It's really weird that when you don't prepare for the worst, you're not even thinking that there is something awful around the corner. And I went to have a laparoscopy at a local hospital where they inserted a camera into my abdomen. And as I always say, I'll never forget the day when I came round from the anesthetic, achy shoulders, because apparently like they pump you full of gas and it just works its way up to your shoulders. It's the details that you remember is really weird. And then they explained I had this condition. And so then it went through to the process of, making the vagina. But as a teenager, learning that you're infertile, learning as a child that you'll never be able to carry a child is one issue, because I think it's, in our 16s or our teens, we think there's this rite of passage to parenthood, to partnership. And both of these things were not available to me. They were not part of my body. So it's already a head fuck being a teen, let alone knowing that you're going to have to, go in with your parents, make a vagina.
Can I delicately ask you, for very basic layman terms, for people not understanding what you are saying here, what is the simplest way you can explain your condition to us?
Honestly, the absence of a uterus and a vagina. It's a genetic condition. It's 1 in 5,000, which I failed to mention. So it's not considered in the world of rare, but it's certainly infrequent. And I think because of its very nature of it taboo and below the belt and women's health and all that kind of stuff as a teen, or even for any age, I think for women, it's very hard to talk about things sort of below the belt. So that is the condition. And I've got to be honest, it's really interesting, and we'll probably get onto this point, but something I'm really learning in my now 40s is how, as traumatic and awful it is to find out you're unable to have a child biologically, or carry one biologically, I should say, there's something very jarring about the word vagina. And there lies the stigma and the shame and the taboo. So yeah, it's simply born without. And I do try to say it as simply as that. I don't try to give it too much leverage to hold grip of me.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that so like honestly and bluntly, because I think people don't get the magnitude. You can hear the medical terms, but the magnitude of how big this is
Right.
for you
Right.
is said in those statements you just made right there. And just want to, so you're 16 and you're 16, found out this information.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you feeling in this, like, if you want to share that?
Honestly, nothing. But that, I always think the worst feeling after a bad feeling is actually not feeling at all. And I think that just echoes to the magnitude of shock and being stunned and numb. You cannot comprehend. I don't think at any age you can really comprehend something so significant. I really, honestly, I think I wasn't. I wasn't clucky. I certainly wasn't at 16, and I didn't envisage the I'm going to be missing out on the baby stuff, because I thought, well, I've got that to come. I don't think at 16, 17, sure, we see it in our futures, but I don't think we're at family planning stage. I certainly think at 16, told that if you want to have penetrative sex, you will have to go and make a vagina. And I use that language so candidly. I mean, I'm sure there's other people that would phrase it less literally, but that was what it was. And so my friends who are talking about periods, first sexual encounters, I learned to lie quite quickly, and not to be deceitful, but to fit in. And there's definitely, and oh, look, it fucked me up. I mean, I leaned into self-harm. I leaned into eating disorders. I leaned into alcohol from the age of 16, 17. I used a lot of alcohol to make the vagina, because therefore, if I wasn't really super alert and like somewhat numb, it wouldn't be so hard to do. And we can talk about that. But yeah, I didn't I just wasn't actually comprehending anything.
Yeah.
Really
Ali, can
weird.
I ask, like, what I mean, I don't know, you
Yeah.
would have been listened a million times before as well, but isn't so when we're born, these checks aren't done? Like, what's that? Yeah.
I think, well, if there's nothing externally alarming,
Yeah.
and there are other conditions, definitely within sort of intersex conditions or something called CIAS, which is the intersex condition, there are somewhat external indicators. It would be a huge resource to test every baby for something that they don't have. And that lends the question a lot to, to gender and to people wanting to transition and to, I think to do that, it would cause a lot of stress, I think. And it's not one of those conditions. It's not one of the 5, let's say, for Down syndrome where they would perform that. So externally, there was nothing to alarm.
But really, though, even like the fact, because you said the vagina was as your finger was the same, so even that wouldn't have been picked up because that wouldn't, as a baby,
No,
you're not
no.
like that. No.
So there's the vulva
Yeah.
that, as I said, from the outside in, that formed, and that continued to develop because of the estrogen, because of the external development. That there was no indicators. There was pubic hair. There was, I want to say we've all got different vaginas, but in terms of like the labia and still there was nothing to I've got really big boobs, so there wasn't anything as a child. They wouldn't insert, say, I don't
so
even think
they're not going to be
do it.
testing that. Yeah,
because it's so rare as well. They're probably not,
As a parent, you might probably not want that.
100%. And in its rarity, a GP might only see this condition once in their lifetime. So it's not even something that they would think to look for, let alone test for. But interesting question. Yeah.
When did you start the process, or how did they explain the process to you of, okay, well, we need to form your vagina?
So I went to London, the flagship. There's a really great MRKH, say, flagship centre, and a lot of people in the UK will go to this centre. Likewise in Sydney, there's a flagship, and America, there's a flagship. I was sat down with the consultants, and they said there's 2 procedures you can go down. You can go down the non-surgical path, which is vaginal dilation through lengthening using dilators, or surgery. In saying surgery, you still have to dilate, even so. And I desperately would want to fact check this, like in my present day. But speaking to an incredible consultant in Sydney, she explained, 85% to 90% of people with MRKH don't actually need to have surgery, and everybody's going to be different. I have to be very aware that I'm speaking about my experiences now. However, for me, it was recommended to go down that path. And it's also really interesting, about the purpose of vagina, because a lot of the dialogue was around when you have penetrative sex. And I've got a real kind of eager beaver part of me that wants to explore that might not actually be a person's reason to have a vagina. And it certainly isn't something that we should say to young girls. It could be for anything. For me, it was empowerment. That sounds a bit wanky now, but it was taking back power that was, I felt, had been sort of taken from me. And so I sat there and they said, look, we can get you into the clinic in a month. And I was like, yes, of course, I gave my consent. However, if there was some sort of psychological intervention at that point, if they really were to sit down and look at the whole picture of my life and my mental health, I wouldn't have put me into that clinic, because I was self-harming. I was, as I say, dabbling with eating disorders. My mental health was like at rock bottom. And so to add the process of going into a hospital, which I did for sort of like they call it like an inpatient program, if you're lucky enough, I've got to say, there's certainly places in the Western world that don't have it, and God forbid, places that don't even have that type of privilege. And they explained to me that the process would look like, think of it like I'm not going to, dilators are sort of test tubes, that they're shaped like that. They're shaped like your vaginal canal. And they start off quite small, so it might be the length of your finger, little finger, and it might have the same sort of the circumference or the width. And then it gets bigger in size when you start to stretch. So the vaginal wall is a tissue that's very elasticy, really, if it's the same texture as the inside of your mouth. And there are procedures where they use the lining of the inside of the mouth to create vaginas through surgical means. And so I was told to lie on my back, to splay my knees in a diamond shape, and to push the tip of this smallest vagina dilator into the dimple, what was existing, and to push hard. And they said, when your knuckles turn white, you're doing it correctly. And I always use that because I think the imagery of that is quite stark. If you were to push your pad of your thumb into the palm of your other hand and push, that is for 20 minutes. And you do that from morning and evening.
Going to say you were actually unconscious and this is how they do it. I didn't realize you had to be conscious.
Because you have to be, you're the one applying pressure, so you have to be. I mean, there's various things that people would say to do now, such as taking a long bath, or certainly not drinking alcohol like I did, putting something on the TV that, that might distract you. But it's really harrowing. And I have to say, a psychologist once said to me, if I was to really drill down into a part of your past, I can't believe that pun. If I was to sort of really examine a part of your past, it would be those 3 days in hospital, because the shame and the disgust that I had for myself was soaring at a rapid rate. And I learnt subconsciously quite quickly that someone is banging. I'm so sorry.
Okay, that's a sign. The universe.
Okay, great, because this is real life. This is real life renovations. Okay, great. That I learned very quickly that the association between progress and pain and intimacy, and it almost felt like, and I have to be really careful when I talk about this because I'm not a victim of sexual abuse or sexual assault, I certainly felt like I was assaulting myself. It didn't even feel like I was losing my virginity with myself. It was way more brutal, I think. And I left hospital and carried on at home. And that it took me 9 months. I dropped out of school. I was a mess. I went from under eating to like binge eating. I was trying to hide my body. Again, self-harming more and more. I was just unraveling. And that's, I always think it's quite sad. Yeah.
Like, does it work in the end, or?
Well, I got to say, when I got to the last size, or the biggest size, there's actually 7 sizes now, whereas back in the 90s we had 3. It did, in terms of, I probably completely got every KY jelly out of the village that I live in. I was like, literally, the stock was at a lowest level. And so I would use the KY jelly mark on the dilator as my spirit level of my that was my benchmark. And when I kind of achieved, I don't think I was particularly celebrating. In that time, though, I did go to Australia. I was meant to go out with my mum, and I was 17, but my brother had a really bad bike accident, and she's Australian, so we had family there. But I went out on my own, and that's where I decided to lose my virginity. That's where I decided to road test my progress.
How was that experience for you? I mean, gosh.
Do you know what's so odd? Is that I was in Australia in February, and I had a week away in Byron. You might have seen this, Anita, on Instagram. And I was actually with the guy who I lost my virginity to. So I'm sure he's fine with this, and he would be fine with this. But we didn't really talk about it. I kind of made some excuse that I needed to go into the bottom drawer of my bedside cabinet to get some eye gel, which is really KY jelly. Why the fuck I'd put eye gel on my vagina anyway? But we went the lie, thinking on my feet. But then I actually did have sex again with somebody else out in Australia when I was 17. And he said to me, "Oh, Ali," I'm going to do my Aussie accent, but I can feel a blockage. And I was like, fuck. And he was quite big. So, I mean, I shouldn't say that in terms of comparison, but
did he know beforehand?
No, he didn't know. So no one knew. No, both of my sexual partners. Actually, I didn't tell any sexual partners up until my first boyfriend, I think, at the age of my long term at like 19.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And how were those first 2 sexual experiences? Did you enjoy them, or was it
I mean, I looked in the mirror the next day thinking, oh my God, I'm going to look like a woman. And it didn't. It didn't achieve the status that I wanted to have for myself. Did I enjoy it? No. In the sense of, did I gain pleasure? Did I gain an orgasm from it? No, I felt safe. I think sometimes I always used to think if you move in the right way, if you rate the right noises, the right facial expressions, you're doing sex. But I certainly had learned the absolute art of detachment. So I was never attached to my body. My mind and my body were two different things. Hence why I allowed to, because I hurt it. And therefore that's why I sadly went down the path of allowing other people to hurt it, because then again, association with intimacy and pain. That's kind of what it was. But they were fine. They were great. They were very good looking people. But I didn't look at myself. It wasn't anything. I'm like, oh my God, that's like a movie sex scene. No.
And do you think that was because you said there because of the detachment? It wasn't the pain, or it wasn't because
I don't know. Like how many? I don't know. It'd be interesting to, I guess, not to throw the mic back onto you guys, but in terms of first sexual experiences, I don't think well, from what I've heard among people, they're not necessarily earth moving. They're kind of more explorative, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I feel like I'm insulting every
We got a
ex-boyfriend.
whole episode on coaching, don't you worry.
I'll just do a blanket apology. I'll put a press release out. I'm so sorry. No.
So Ali, this is the part that just really interests me though. Is like, so you doing all of this forms you a normal vagina?
A typical vagina. Yeah.
Typical. Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if men would know the difference, or like through. I don't think men necessarily go into a sexual experience, or women go through a sexual experience. Go, is this one that's been made, or versus is this one that's naturally formed?
Yeah.
But yes, it worked, and it was. I had graduated from vagina making school, and the thing that I was actually very what's the word, active, let's say, I was quite promiscuous. And again, not for everybody goes down this path, but I've spoken to a fair few people with MRKH, and I would say that a lot of people use sex as a vehicle to gain a validation, and to gain a desirability as a woman, and to also feel like they are a normal woman. So I've always said I refuse to dilate ever again. And so if it meant having sexual partners somewhat not lined up literally, but I never was single, or certainly not active for ever very long. Because I didn't want to do that. And it's only getting into my 30s and 40s where there have obviously been gaps in relationships where I've had to really weigh up motivation of, shit, do I like apply some self-worth here and not just go and do the process because I don't want to dilate, or do I take the risk? I mean, a lot of doctors and nurses will say that, I mean, it's divided. Some will say to keep dilating, and others will say it actually doesn't just shrink, it doesn't rebound. But to kind of top it up, if you like, top up the dilation. So yeah, that's been an interesting kind of area of growth.
So it's like making a choice whether to go and have sex with people in order to keep your vagina. Is that what we're saying?
Essentially. And so I was in I had some really awful well, I don't want to there is not one ex-boyfriend apart from one that I don't have a good sort of relationship with, or like a friendship with, or know that I could pick up the phone and they'd be fine to answer. But I did go into quite a terrible first relationship of domestic abuse, and I always say this, I mean, I'm probably too late, but definitely a trigger warning is worth it. And that was for 6 years, but I wasn't faithful. And I went into another relationship of 10 years where I particularly wasn't faithful. And that wasn't, and I can't justify infidelity. I really don't, but I have looked at why. And it had nothing to do with trying to go out and be in another relationship. It was to make sure that in those sexist relationships that I didn't have to dilate again, awful as it is. And both of those people, the first guy, I never told him. Someone told him on my behalf out of spite. I had an argument with a girl at work, and she went up to him and said, "Well, you know, Ali, your girlfriend, well, she was born without a, womb and vagina, ha 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 ha." And I was like mortified. And he did turn round to the regulars and said, "Is it any wonder that I don't want to have sex with that?" And so that was that. I'm underplaying it. It was awful. I'm kind of getting very up and close and personal with that relationship in terms of behavior. And then the second I text him, so I was like, "I've got something to tell you," and I sent him like a Wikipedia, like of MRKH, and that was it. Never talked about it again for 10 years. Well, until we broke up.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Honestly,
How far into these relationships
I was
were
a
you?
fucking car crash.
Yeah, wow.
But
How
I
long
don't.
have you been with them when this stuff came? Yeah,
Oh, maybe month for both. But
right,
again, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
I was picking men who didn't want their partner to be the mother of their children. And I was picking men that probably had their own shit going on, that weren't
yeah,
looking for the loving. I was attracting what I felt, and I was attracting what I was looking for. So I don't put sole onus onto both of those being dysfunctional in their own way.
no,
We both went to the party, probably not to be in that relationship for the duration that we were in. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So
Mm.
when was the moment? I mean, I guess just to recap, after discovering this huge, huge moment in your life that you haven't got a vagina, and obviously being promiscuous and trying to find yourself and trying to maintain that, feeling disconnected from body, getting into domestic violence situations, when did you feel like you found connection with your body? And how did you do that?
Bondi Beach. I mean,
Hey.
I always say it's a mecca for misfits. You don't find yourself in Bondi Beach if you haven't got some shit to work out. No offense to my peers. Uh, I went over there on the run. I always did that thing where I was always running from a situation, thinking I'd find solace in the next place, or certainly not happy. Geography, GPS, emotional GPS. The I think the turning point was my mum had a stroke in the UK, and she was fine. She recovered fine, but I just saw her tenacity to recover, and I thought it would be such an injustice to her if I didn't attempt to do the same. My relationship was well overdue a breakup, and he did break up with me, and I best the thing that he did, because I would have carried on in that relationship where we just didn't want to be together anymore. And I went looking for help, and I emailed a hospital, a women's hospital in Sydney, and I said, "Oh, do you have like an MRKH support group?" And they said, "We don't, but we do want to create one, and would you be willing to come and chat with us?" And I started also doing yoga, and I know that's another cliche, but you can't run off the mat. The yoga teachers have to see your arms with the scars and self-harming, and I was just doing all this engineering of, trying to get well. I was so exhausted for being so unhappy and watching life like a conveyor belt. Like, when am I going to join the happy train? And so it kind of all just serendipitously, Lulu, sort of came together. I mean, it wasn't as neat as that. I started writing. I started being creative again, and through the hospital, we did do a first support group, and there was 15 women in a small room. We had a few presentations. We had some chance to share afterwards, and it was so powerful. I think sometimes we overcomplicate, I want to say, like, healing, recovery, whatever that might be. But if we look back throughout the years, most recovery groups, be, AA, NA, Bible study groups, whatever it might be, the thread of mechanism there is you put people in a room with a bunch of chairs and you say, "Let's talk." And I think that's what happened. And we started, I called the foundation the Sisters for Love. A bit like, I mean, it was cute. It said what it meant to on the tin, but now, I didn't know anything about branding back then. And myself and my friend Jackie, we just joined forces, and it was the most incredible, almost effortless thing that I've ever done, because it was just so right. And in Sydney, it was really interesting. because I realized that if I'm going to do this, or the first thing as a charity is you got to raise money and you got to get the status. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like that's 2 years down the line. We need to start talking about vaginas openly, because until we start having those conversations, every email that I send a journalist is not going to answer me. And even with the subject heading, not that I was looking for clickbait, just what it was. And that's always been my way, is to say the diagnosis in its full entirety, and to try to connect people with people, to do research with academics, to work with, surrogacy, adoption, media. I'm not a media junkie, but it's the vehicle, and that's what I did. It was so powerful, and connecting people. In 2016, we did global MRKH, where I feel like I rabbit on from your original question. So please just tell me.
No, this is
Stop.
amazing. It's amazing to hear what you've been doing.
No, it was great.
Wow, so powerful. The primary driver of all humans is to be seen, to be heard, to not feel alone. And that is so core in our humanity. But we've come into this place of separation that we forget that. And to be alone in your pain is I think why there's so much suffering in the world.
Oh, loneliness. Well, it's a killer. It is the next epidemic.
Yeah. And so you brought these all together in this space in the simplest, most powerful way. I think it's a reminder it's not hard. It's not hard for us to come together in our pain.
Do you know, it's interesting. I found it hard to, how can I put this? Because I think funds are always so beneficial in a charity. But for me, I wasn't desperate for funds. I was desperate for connection. I was struggling. I was at a point I was struggling to justify what to raise our funds on, because at that point, what we needed was just to keep going with talks and seminars and conferences, and sharing our work with the medical professions. I always think it's really necessary to work with and not try to, like, I'm not an activist, I'm an advocate. And I think they're two very distinctive, different roles, because I want to work with and not come from a place of anger or frustration, or, you could have done better and why are you not doing this? And no, I think it's wonderful. But I should say that while I found that, the demons of the relationship stuff were still lurking. I mean, if you've dated in Bondi, and I say that kind of eye-rolly, it's not the easiest place. I don't think dating in your 30s is an easy place, but I was still really trying to work out how to be a girlfriend in a healthy relationship. And I would say that continues to be an absolute work in progress, because of probably the underbelly of the diagnosis is just always, I guess that's where it's hit me the hardest. Some people struggle with not being able to have children, and the grief I grieve that. But for me, it's trying to find self-worth in relationships and holding my own with that.
Do you find that, Ali, that you've met many men that have not wanted to date because of the child thing?
I haven't found it. I don't think they would say it, if I'm honest.
Okay.
No, I've never been in a situation where someone said they don't want to be with me because I can't have children. I would say I was in relationships, likewise, again, attracting maybe what I was, with people who had their own shit. And some of these relationships the boundaries needed to come in way faster. I don't even know what I probably do now, but I don't know what a red flag was back then. I was just like, oh my God, you're so edgy. Oh, you're so unconventional. Oh, treat me a bit like shit. Make me work for this relationship. And now I'm like, I don't know necessarily if this is the right formula, Ali. I did have a guy. He was concerned that with my history of like the mental health and the diagnosis and self-harm, I think he felt that I would be a bit of a ticking clock. And I sensed that he was quite uncomfortable. I think he actually said, what if it happens again? And so that didn't happen. But we actually met again. We met years later, and we, chatted about it. So I always like to have amends with my exes. Apart from one.
How do you feel that on that front, Ali, on the mental health front, the stuff that he was concerned about, is is it a concern for you, or was that like early years?
I think now I'm so embedded in the advocacy that I absolutely 100% know that it does good and it's the most important place for people. So if I ever feel unsure, I just have to quickly like check in with that life and go, actually, Ali, this is more important, or there's nothing to feel ashamed of. You know, when people say, oh, he accepted me, and I'm thinking, you didn't come broken. It's not, he's not done you a favor by accepting, but I think, you know, learning to do that. It's still, you know, you said before, Anita, you said, oh, you've probably said this 100 times. It never doesn't feel difficult talking about this. I get used to what to say,
Really?
but it's still such a sort of a lingering trauma, and there's still kind of that, I'm going to be talking about something quite personal, but I do know my boundary with it. I do know that feeling that I know don't quite go there. I have different scripts for different days for different reasons. I It's not saying that people should Google me, but I think if people were to date me, they would quite quickly sort of see Ali in the charity, and they'd find out anything anyway. And I did, how should I say it? Oh, fuck it. I'm having another date next week with a guy, and he, we swapped Instagram last year, and because we just didn't really connect properly. And so I figured that he's seeing everything, but I have yet to have that conversation. And he could feel kind of, maybe he feels a bit awkward by it, maybe he doesn't want to be too intrusive by it, or maybe he just doesn't care. But whatever happens, that conversation will have to kind of emerge, because there's stuff attached. I think with MRKH, it's always like the chicken and the egg of, did I have this feeling or this problem or this belief system without MRKH, or because of it? And because it's happens so early on, I kind of just lay out all on the table. But then I also just think that some men, it sounds awful, they don't care. They just want to have a really great relationship with you. Not that they go, oh, fucking hell, we come with like baggage. Some men actually just, I think we have to believe, you know, that's that famous Maya Angelou, you know, if they show you who they are, believe them. If they do come to the table and they're wanting to be in a relationship with you, then believe them. But I'm just trying to pick choices that just don't have like an inkling of red flag, despite me liking maybe that for its own little reason. Therapy will work this out. But yeah, I just want kindness. I just want kindness and safety. That's all I want from a partner.
Yeah, and it's funny because those are been my primary drivers
Right.
in a relationship, and a lot of things from my past I have shame about, and I know I've known only recently that I can be with someone when I can feel no shame about sharing that. And
Can I
I want
ask what your shame is? Can I ask
uh,
what that shame is? Or if you're not prepared to talk about it, that's
I'm
absolutely
not
fine.
ready to talk about it.
Okay,
Obviously,
no worries.
there's children who are still on the,
Okay.
in the world at the moment, living
Hmm.
life. They don't need to experience. But the shame, it's big
Yeah,
and it's a
profound.
lot. It's poor choices and it's things that have affected my kids. But when dating or being with people, the more I am just straight out, hey, like after a few days, this is who I am. These things happened. I have a lot of
Mhm.
trauma around it. Generally, if their reaction doesn't instill safety and security in me, I will just, I have to get away from that. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering, so just, is that your experience of someone
Yeah,
or do you give them chances?
shame is dangerous. Um, I've been talking and working with a woman who is a victim of Jeffrey Epstein, and shame has been something that has been side by side with her, and she has talked openly about this, so I'm not sharing her shame
She was on
secrets.
this morning, wasn't she? Is that the
She was on
lady I
this
saw?
morning,
Yeah.
yeah, and hopefully, like maybe by the time this comes out, there's an article in Oz that I've written with
Yeah.
Lisa for Lisa. But one of the things I went on her podcast and we connected over shame, which is quite an interesting thing to kind of connect over and bond over. But I did say, when shame gets into your bloodstream, it is so hard It's so hard to detox and cleanse from that. And we've seen all the, you know, the Brené Browns and the shame, and it, you know, it's feeling versus what you did, but it's awful. And it can happen on a micro level. It can happen if you've had a really bad argument with someone that went south. It can happen when you've drunk too much and you've fucked up. It can happen with a big magnitude of something. It's shame is an awful emotion. And I think, yeah, yeah. Do I feel shame?
In
I
the
feel,
presence of someone, have you felt shame
oh
after
God,
telling
yeah.
that experience of them, you know, I know no one can make you feel anything, but someone's reactions can trigger
Head
your trauma.
tilts, pauses,
Oh, yep.
ghosting. I mean, I wouldn't say that they are necessarily tied to MRKH, and I don't necessarily say they intended it to do the shame, but that's certainly the feeling evoked. And I don't know what the perfect anecdote is to shame. They say, you know, talk about it, and it doesn't exist in the light. It doesn't exist in the real world. So maybe that's the thing. And, you know, I've got this podcast, but I haven't recorded for a while, but it's called Stigma Shakers. And it's the premise of this whole podcast is the shame we carry, shame of being single, the shame of divorce, the shame of loneliness, the shame of masturbation, the shame of all these sort of we're walking through life. We probably never talk about it, and that's where it
Ali,
breeds.
had you experienced shame before the diagnosis?
I think I was too young to really
Yeah.
have that. Where I mean, I had started self-harming just before my diagnosis, so I can't say it was
Yeah.
triggering. But did the appearance of that cause my own shame? 100%.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
people, I think, bar one, said no.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's been an absolute head fuck. It's been difficult. It's been confronting, and it's been incredibly lonely. But oh my gosh, you know, I don't think the way that I should pick a life is there's no better or less than a person's choice. But I know that I've been exposed to the most incredible women, not just it with MRKH, but people like yourselves. It leads you to conversations that I may never have had. I've, you know, traveled the world. I've found a purpose, and I know another cliche
Yeah.
word, but I want to feel that. I want to feel like I leave this earth with some sort of legacy. And
Yeah.
maybe like 100 years time, when someone's going, I don't know how to cope with MRKH, they'll go, oh, look, there's something Alley Hensley wrote, or something like that. But no, I wouldn't. No,
Yeah.
which is good, really, isn't it?
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I
I'd have
love
a
what
really
you said
bad
there.
day if I said, oh no.
Yeah, no, and I love that. And I think what you alluded to earlier, and I think what I understood from that is that it gives you purpose to live, right? So if you ever have any of those moments of doubt of whether you
Mm.
want to be here or not, is that what I was understanding? This is like your purpose to help other women.
It gives me a sense of belonging, and I
Yeah,
think that sometimes we really struggle for our home or our belonging. I mean, I've decided to recently dip in and out of MRKH work, and that's actually not because I'm traumatized. It's actually the opposite. I feel like I've gone through quite a few of the major milestones, and I've got there's a piece there, and also I want to explore other things that life has to offer, and be really careful that MRKH doesn't become my identity, and it doesn't become my only sort of USP into a conversation and go, well, you can't just always leverage off that, Ali. Like you've got to do other things. But yes, I don't know if that kind of was
yeah,
answering
totally.
your
I mean, I
question.
hear you on that. Even within myself, in the work that I do, is the identity, right? So it's kind of the same. It's like, yeah, what else is there to talk about except for
Well, it's
childhood
good. I
trauma?
guess it's looking at the purpose of the work. I think sometimes if I'm trying to stroke my ego or give myself a better day, and I know I could just probably go and do this, and my MRKH work will make me feel good and validated. And
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, no,
Yeah.
stay away from Instagram, Ali. You don't need to prove yourself today.
Whereas
So
Um,
I
what?
feel like I'm changing personality every freaking 2 years. I'm like, just calm
2 years, that's okay.
just like it's so much, Candice. You don't need to learn another thing.
Oh,
You
it's
don't need
amazing.
another thing. It's a lot. You know, because I evolve quickly. Like I let go of the identity so quickly. I mean, the yogi in me is constantly there, but what I realized with the constant changing is
Mm,
that my purpose stays the same. My modalities change, but my purpose is always the same. And that's
I
to
love
hold
that.
space for people to heal.
The heel. God,
Yeah,
yeah, we
love
could do
that.
with some healing in this world. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
So, Ali, can I ask you then, for what else is there to Ali then? Not
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
well, okay. So I'm really loving I've really found I struggle to find my feet again if it's not purely for the MRKH world, because I'm like, that's my anchor point. And that in Sydney, I was working a corporate job. I was like, which was great because it afforded me a Bondi apartment, but I got no graphic. I mean, I got good money. Um, I now really want to work in the sort of like book and publishing world, which I'm doing. So I'm a ghostwriter. I've written 5 books under different people's names, which I love. It's so much more than writing a book. I'm sort of becoming their confidant. I'm becoming like, I'm not saying I want to be these roles, but the friendship, the trust, the storytelling. So I'm really passionate about working in the memoir world with people who've got really big stories that probably come from quite a lot of shit, and I'd love doing that. But I'm also going down a bit more the publication on the publishing pathway. So what does that look like to get a book into the world, or what's the different variations of publishing? And it just really comes down to storytelling. I mean, that's kind of, for me, that's the crux of it, is getting stories out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I'd like to revive my podcast, but I haven't. And
I
I'd
want to
like to.
come on, please do it.
I know, no, I'd love to do it. I'd love to do that. But I think the modality of creativity is where I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe that second date next week. Who knows? That might go somewhere. Living in the village, which is always
So
fun.
funny you just said that modality of creativity. I'm speaking to so many women on here and in life and on social media who are just either going into that phase of creativity or
Mm.
longing to step into it and not knowing how. So given, all that you've been through and all our perceived obstacles and pain or our experiences, what is it like? How would you tell someone to to give them the courage to step out of that pain, to give them the courage to step into their next role, the next creativity? What would you say?
Oh gosh. Well, the people that I feel like are on the precipice of, say, writing a book, there's a lot of people on the precipice of writing a book, but actually doing the writing part, the real committing to it part. I mean, it sounds as droll as it is, but I think sometimes the overthinking of that book, or overthinking the content, that's kind of where I work with a lot of writers, is, what can I say? I mean,
How do they take the leap? If I'm sitting at home and I honestly am not loving the life I want now, I've been through lots of stuff in my life, been through lots of trauma, and because of that trauma, I'm maybe held back from my
mm,
creativity because of fear.
well,
How did you?
I mean, maybe get a really good therapist to sort of to soften the trauma. I think if you're holding trauma, then I don't think that's the right time to. You've got to. It's that gut feeling. Is it making me feel excited, or is it making me feel sick?
I
Um, I feel
think
like I
that's a
want to
really
be
good point.
really philosophical. I don't know. You know, with authors, it's really interesting. I sit down, I interview them, and I present them their life story, and they get really excited by that in terms of like a book layout. And then I go, okay, well, when are you ready to start? And I hold them accountable. I'm like, come on, you're meant to, like, where's chapter 5? We're meant to write chapter 5. And then, so I don't think doing it solo. I'm not sure we're meant to be doing it solo. I think trying to do anything solo, choose a mentor, choose a buddy, find the place that gives you information, find the Instagram account, find actually human beings that you can get involved with. I think trying to do stuff solo is not what we're supposed to do on this planet, without, 100%. And I think sometimes saying it out loud and feeling inadequate. I think a lot of people maybe in their 30s, 40s, 50s really want to leap over. So there's a woman that I've been writing content for. She's just launched her online program and in person. And she's like, Ali, I just want to make my kids proud. I just want to show the world that I can do this. And I'm like, great, this is just the beginning. And so I sort of support her. And it's not just about client and like that kind of relationship. It's not just about, certainly, about money. I think it's about just believing in someone and helping them like cross over the other side, and
Yeah.
like, God, and they're going to mess up. It's that failure thing.
Mm,
We do have to fail. All
yeah.
creatives have to fail.
Ali, would you say that you used any of your pain to create?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Oh, all the time. My mum
Yeah.
said to me, she said, I've only read like 15 pages of your book. And I said, can you please read it when I'm out of the country for a start? Because I can't look you in the eye if you read my book. Um, she said, I didn't realize you really feel deeply. And I said, I do. It takes me years to get over shit. But she said, I guess that's why you're a really good writer because I think when you have a lot of pain, it's a two-way street that you don't get to
Yeah.
choose. If
Yeah.
you want to access creativity, you're not only going to have that to feed your good, you're going to let all the other shit out as well. Like there's no way of kind of
Exactly.
selectively tapping into a feeling or an emotion to tell a story.
Mm.
So art, it's the driving force because uh I just think it keeps me close to my why.
Yeah, and I
And
get
that's
that.
not
And I
to say
think
I
the
think
more that
yeah,
you can outpour it, the more you're going through it, right? The more you can get to the other side of it in parts.
yeah,
It's kind of like, and the best, the best storytellers, it's about the pain and getting through the pain
right.
and coming through to the other side. So I had a client the other day, and we were talking about she's writing a book at the moment, and there are parts of it that are really painful, but we were just talking about how using that pain to inspire other people that are also in pain to be
Mm,
able to get on
mm.
and do things, and to be able to take from what she's done in her past to inspire them also to get through. So it's kind of like, yeah,
Mm,
I know,
there's so
I
many
know
people
yeah,
suffering.
I was going to say, I know we're coming to time, but I think this is a really important point as well, that when you're creating maybe something from repurposing of pain, is to
mm,
do it in a place that when you look back on 6 months, you haven't regretted what you shared. I think to do live time sharing is really good. Like we do videos, we do reels on Instagram, we show ourselves vulnerable, we show ourselves crying. But I think when you're writing, and my editor used to explain this a lot to me, write it, or leave it. Or that's
Yeah,
the saying, write from your scar and not your wound.
yeah.
I think sometimes in the world of social media, we feel like coping is sharing or sharing is coping. 100% no. Like if I've got any feeling that I should not be putting this out into the world, and that goes for protecting people. I could
yeah,
be really angry about ex-boyfriends. I could be a real revenge writer. That is not the way to use a platform with integrity.
yeah,
It's just so I think there's a lot of checking in you have to do with self, and I think
yeah.
that's why it's good to write or work with other people who've kind of had that head start. Because
Mm,
I've turned down books with people just saying this is to go after your ex. This isn't a reason to publish your memoir, or
mm,
certainly I won't be the person to be doing
And
it.
it's asking that question of who are you writing it for ultimately?
mm.
And it's kind of like that thing, write out the message, but leave it half an hour before you send
Oh
it.
yeah, I
And
know.
you
I do.
write
People say
it.
just get it out your system, and I'm like, oh no, that's not good enough. If I'm gonna, I'd rather do it, not do it, or send it. But I do understand in the book writing world, you've got to look at the reason you're sharing a story, and I think there's especially when there's shame and sensitivity and taboo. A lot of people with MRKH want to go out and say something. They want to go out and do something. I think it's really important to use your platform wisely because you're representing a lot of people, but also, are you prepared for the look? Are you prepared for a comment that you can't take away on Instagram? Are you prepared for your colleagues and your family to maybe look at you slightly differently, thinking, what has she got between her legs? I think you
Mm,
have to really check in with if you're ready. And I've got like a thing, I do this thing where, the ways to kind of, I guess, I was going to say not censor yourself because that's exactly what my book isn't, but maybe just do a bit of self inquiry and go, what's the reason you're sharing today?
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Love that.
yeah. I
So,
think what I realized having people on this platform and you yourself is that everyone we speak to has taken pain and transmuted it into a really joyful nature
Mm,
and passionate about what they're doing.
that's the
And
point. Yeah, yeah,
you know,
hope.
well, that's what I'm seeing. So when you say to people, well, you can use your pain, I think the wonderful thing is your pain can be transmuted into this beautiful,
Mhm.
joyful energy that helps others, which I'm seeing from you and so many other guests. So
Mm.
thank you. Do you
I
have
think it's,
any?
yeah, put the pain out there and then dilute it with some hope.
Yeah,
I think that's not to say that everything has a shiny ending, but I think
doesn't.
also I think it's also about looking at the message that you want to go away and how to impart that hope, like a kind of like a baton, carry it forward, carry the hope forward.
Yeah.
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 Anita, do you have any last words?
I just love that you came on,
I
Ali.
love
It's been so
this.
amazing.
Such
It's
a great
lovely to
chat.
connect with you. Such a great chat. Thank you
Such a
so
great
much.
chat.
You're such
Yeah.
a good storyteller as well. I mean, I could
Yeah.
listen to you for hours and
I'm
hours.
serious. I was having a crisis shame moment in the shower, thinking, "Oh shit, I've got to present in a few months." I was like, "I don't know if I can do it." And then I was like, "Yeah, you can. See, this is the thing. Women build up women. I love it. No,
Yeah.
It's a really great chat. So thank you
No.
so much.
Oh,
Your
and my
questions
last
have been
thing.
brilliant.
Oh, go. Sorry.
Your questions have been brilliant in the
Oh,
sense that you've dug into places that you went to places that some interviewers don't necessarily go to, or you know what I mean. It's been a sort of yeah, it's been a really transparent and inquisitive and curious chat. So
Oh.
thank you
love
to
We
you
that.
have
Love
both.
that.
desire to know humans. I think Anita and I both share that
Yeah,
curiosity about human beings.
And
yeah.
what I'm really curious about is how the date goes. So please, can you keep us informed? Not to build it up or anything.
See, I'm the empowered woman, and I'm like, oh shit, it's so terrifying.
No.
But I'm sure oh, look, it's actually more terrifying just because it's trusting,
What is yeah, go on. What is the most terrifying bit for you?
Hmm.
trusting that not this could sound fucking cynical. Trusting that there are good people, and
Yeah.
trusting that the goodness that you see is actually underneath as well,
Yeah.
and trusting myself to make good choices. I think that's the hardest part. Yeah. MRKH, no, easy. We're good. We're
Really,
good with
that's not
vaginas.
yeah.
We're good with
No.
vaginas. That's not a problem. Kids, not a problem. It's my own thing about, yeah, trusting my choices and
Yeah.
seeing it not through like a distorted lens, but trusting like I've refocused it the correct way this time.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Can't
Awesome.
wait to hear, Ali.
Okay, well, I
No.
probably should with you gals. I won't go on a podcast every time I have a date update, but
Well, we might need one. That's a whole other
Yeah,
podcast.
exactly. This our next conversation.
Yeah.
I
What
know.
else is there
24
to
hours
Ali?
later.
Ali's dating life.
Definitely. Well, what about
My
Anita's
next book.
dating life?
Sorry.
What about Anita's dating life?
Oh,
Well, that would
look,
be a 1 second podcast.
what? Yeah, I'd be interested to know what it's like dating in Bali as well.
Don't ask me. But all I ever hear is
Okay.
dating in Bondi, dating in Bali, dating in London, dating in bloody wherever. Men are
But
shit
Bondi and
everywhere.
Bali. Those three Bs have a lot to answer for. Oh, anyway, well, when it goes south in the north hemisphere, I'll come south and try it again. I'm actually coming back to Oz in November, so hopefully.
Oh,
Oh, exciting. Are you coming back
Right,
for,
I'm going to stop talking and let you guys get back to your lives.
are you coming back for a speaking event
Yes,
in November?
yes,
Oh, please share the details so we can
yes,
share it and attend if I'm here. So yes.
yes. I might be doing a little bit of a campaign out there actually around vaginas and shame and name it, don't shame it. So yeah, hopefully there's going to be something happening at the end of the year there. Yeah.
And I feel like I have someone in mind that'd be a great sponsor for that. So maybe we can chat another time.
Okay. Excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to hearing this when it goes live, as and when. But thank you both so much for holding such a safe space and my story with such gentle hands.
we love you, Ali.
I
Thanks
love
for
you too.
sharing.
Okay. All right. Shall I leave? I'll leave.
Bye.